Perception of depth and distance, monocular cues and binocular cues. As I told you in the last video, few topics of the last video, I guess two topics. One topic was remain, and the other topic which I told you that I will show you its image in the next video. We'll talk about those topics related to last video in the end of this video. First, we'll discuss about this particular topic. This topic is divided into two subtopics, which is monocular cues and binocular cues. In this video, we'll be covering monocular cues because these subtopics are also further divided into subtopics. So in this video, we will talk about monocular cues. In the next video will be about binocular cues. Binocular cues will be short, so the next video will be short. In this video, we'll be discussing about monocular cues. Let's see the introduction about this topic, perception of depth and distance. What is depth perception? Now listen to me carefully. You can read this later. Depth perception, it is your or one's visual ability to perceive the world in three dimensions. So depth perception is one's visual ability to perceive the world in three dimensions, and it also enables us to judge the distance of an object. For example, whenever you see something, a car which is far away, parked far away, you, even though you see it, you kind of can tell the distance. You can judge approximate distance of how far that car is or that object is. Whereas the way we determine the distance of an object is known as distance perception. And what is distance perception? We saw depth perception. What is distance perception? The way we determine the distance of an object is known as distance perception. Our brain uses both monocular and binocular cues to judge depth and distance. What is monocular cues? Monocular cues, these are those information or cues which your brain receives from one eye, and this information is weaker than binocular cues in strength. What monocular cues is that it is information which your mind receives from one eye and not two eyes. Two eyes is related to binocular cues, and this monocular cues are weaker in strength. The information you get from monocular cues from a single eye is weaker than binocular cues in strength. Now let's see the topics which we'll be discussing in this. Following are some common monocular cues: relative size, texture gradient, aerial perspective or haze, linear perspective, interposition or occlusion, accommodation. Let's see relative size. This cue gives information about the distance of an object based on its relative size with a similar object. This cue works in two and three dimensions. The basic premise is that if two objects are of approximately same size, the one closer is perceived as larger. What this cue is about is that this cue gives us information about the distance of an object based on its relative size with a similar object. This cue, you have to remember that this cue works in two and three dimensions as well. Now what exactly this is, as a third point here mentions, the basic premise of this topic is, if two objects are of approximately same size, the one closer is perceived as larger. I want you to imagine, there was an image. I wanted to imagine you looking at hot air balloons in the sky. One is close, one is you look one, and you look at one hot air balloon, and the other one is behind it. So you might see the one in front of it a little bit bigger, and the one which is behind it, which is a little bit far away from it, as smaller. I hope you understand. I guess many of you understood what I'm trying to say is that what this topic is saying is easy. It is saying that two objects are of approximately same size. You know the two hot air balloons in the air are of same size, but one which is closer to you, you see it of more size than the other one, but your mind still knows it is of same size. So what is it is saying is that the two objects, the one which is closer is perceived as larger, and one which is farther is perceived as uh, smaller. For example, the car, two same cars, one is far, one is just next to you. The car next to you is big, but when you see it from far away, it's very small. Now let's say texture gradient. This cue is based on our perception of the change in the gradient or degree of texture. Now what this says is that this example which I'll give you, it is an example of the book, that is a wall. If you see a wall from far away, the texture of it might appear smooth, but when you get closer to that wall, a lot closer, and carefully look, you will see the texture of that wall a little bit. It won't be smooth. You will be seeing all that textures in it, the roughness in it, and not smoothness. And that's what this is trying to say, that this cue is based on our perception of the change in the gradient. The change in the gradient, when you look it from far, it's smooth, but when you look it from close, it's rough. So the perception, this cue is based on our perception of the change in the gradient or degree of texture. as the texture changes when you are close to that wall. Aerial perspective or haze. Objects are perceived at a distance if there is a presence of haze in the environment. Whenever there is winter or whenever there is haze, what is haze? Haze is something like fog and all. So it is also formed by water vapors and all. In when there is a winter or all, when you're at a height and there's winter, or maybe you see fog, things which are closer to you, they appear a lot farther than you. You might have experienced that whenever there is haze around you, you might see objects closer to you, very far away from. It's like your mind. It's like deceptive, as it says. Sometimes perception of distance based on haze can be deceptive, because it's actually closer to you. But because of haze, your mind is strict and you perceive it as far away. Linear perspective. This cue is based on the convergence of straight lines at a point on the horizon. This cue suggests that closer the lines are, the greater will be the distance. So what this cue is trying to say is in the second point, is that the closer the lines, the greater will be the distance, as the way you perceive it. This cue, for example, there is sometimes a straight road which goes straight. You're standing on that road and it goes straight. But when you drive on it, that might end quickly. But when you are standing there, you felt like this road is never ending. It is straight. It is never ending. It is very big. So that is the thing. This cue suggests that closer the lines are, the greater will be the distance. This cue is based on, you have to remember this first point. This cue is based on the convergence of straight lines at a point on the horizon. Interposition or occlusion. When two objects are overlapped, then the object which has been overlapped or obscured will be perceived as farther away than the overlapping object. Now I want to imagine this. There is a circle and there is a square and there is a triangle. This is an example from the book. So the circle is at the bottom, then you kept a little bit portion of that square on it, or you overlap them, and then triangle on it. Three of them are in the same position. They are not far away, but still when you look it from above, you might feel like the object which these objects are overlapped, the object which is being overlapped, your mind will perceive it as far away from the object which is overlapping it. It's just the circle overlapped by square. Your mind will perceive that circle to be farther away when you look from above, farther away from that square, but they are just overlapped. So what it is trying to say is that overlapped circle, your mind will perceive that overlapped circle as farther away from that overlapping square. Accommodation. Even though this cue occurs with both eyes, it is still considered as monocular cue. It is known as accommodation because the size. Now this is something you have to remember. This cue occurs with both eyes. It is still considered as monocular cue, part of monocular cue. It is known as accommodation because the size of our lenses accommodates themselves based on the distance. Our lenses become thicker when an object lies closer to while eye, while it becomes thinner when an object lies at a distance. What this is a third point is important. What it is trying to say. Now you have to remember the second point. It is kind of a definition of this. It is known as accommodation because the size of our lenses accommodates themselves based on the distance. It changes, right? Our lenses, they become thicker when object is closer to us, and it becomes thinner when the object is at distance. Our lenses accommodate based on the distance of the object. They become thicker when the object is close and thinner when the object is at distance. That is it for this topic. This is all monocular cues we saw. In the next video we'll be talking about binocular cues. Now let's see what we left off in the last video. Effect of expectation or perceptual expectancy. Perceptual expectancy is a person's readiness or a predisposition to perceive things in a particular way. Now if you haven't watched the last video, I would recommend you to watch it because you won't understand this without watching the last video, because you might think that what is this. So please watch the watch the last video. I will be giving you the, you might see that video pop up in the end of this video. Perceptual expectancy is a person's readiness or a predisposition to perceive things in a particular way. In a classic experiment, Brunner and Minton 1955 illustrated the role of expectation in our perception. In one condition, he showed his participants an ambiguous figure of 13 in the context of numbers like this. You can see that small image in the downside. That is what the example is. Now, listen to me carefully. What this topic is saying is that how your expectation affects or perceptual expectancy, it affects your perception. Now if you see in this image 12, 13 and 14, when you see the series of number 12, 13 and 14, your mind expects, say, when you see 12, 13 and 14, you see 12 and 14, your mind expects that B to be 13. And when you see A, B and C, your mind, when you see A and C, your mind expects it to be an alphabet, so it turns it into B. So you might see it as a number as well and as a alphabet as well. So that is what the example is saying, that your the expectation, now your expectation, when you see 12 and 14, your expectation, it affected your perception, the way you perceived it. You perceived it as a number. But when you saw the alphabets, you perceived it as a alphabet. When you saw A and C, you perceived it as a alphabet, as like B. So this is what this topic is trying to say. Effect of experience. Now this is the image which I was trying to tell you. It is in the book as well. Prior experience plays an important role in the way we interpret similar shapes. Now I explained it in the last video. This is the image. If you have watched the last video, you can see this image which I was trying to show you. How what this Now you can see this image. Let me explain you this topic again. What this topic is trying to say: your prior experience, whatever you have experienced in the past, it plays an important role in the way we interpret stimuli. Now, for example, you might be writing something from whole day, and now you stopped for the last like half an hour. You stopped, and now you're watching this video. And when you saw this image, you might have noticed the pen part first, because your prior experience was a lot related to pen. That is why. And if you were if it wasn't, you might have noticed the part of bird there, the flamingo part of flamingo there. And that is it for this video. These two topics, I would recommend, I would tell you to watch the last video in order to understand this topic. The last video is about the effect of emotions. I mean the effects of perception, like what things affect your perception. It is about that. And that is it for this video. I'll give you some time to take screenshot. And I guess that is it for this video. I'll be uploading a video tomorrow as well about binocular cues, so please subscribe to the channel and on the notification so you don't miss the videos I will be uploading daily. And I'll see you in the next video. Until then, if you want to leave a like, you can leave a like.